Hey guys, it's Jay here with another episode of the UX Direction podcast. Now, today I'd like to speak about something which is extremely relevant to all of us, and especially kind of more so now as it becomes a lot more, kind of normal. It's around recruitment, and in particularly the remote interview process, right? So I can kind of come at this from two angles or kind of two perspectives, right? Because initially, obviously, kind of in 2020, when the pandemic literally became the pandemic, and we were kind of forced into situations where we're all kind of working from home, huge learning curve there, right? I was in the process very start of the year. As soon as in the UK, lockdowns were kind of incurred and stuff. I was in the very early process of interviewing for my current role, and that would have been remote anyway, because it was an international role. But I had to kind of go through that kind of online process, and there was about kind of 6 rounds of interviews, and it was completely different to if I was kind of interviewing kind of face to face, kind of at the other side of a table, kind of to my interviewers, right? So it's completely different. It meant that we had to kind of develop more of a kind of presence, kind of on camera, right? So that was completely different. And I had to change my approach to interviewing right there and then. So fast forward to today, where I'm actively in role. I've been kind of in the position for kind of almost a year at the company. And I've had a kind of 8 vacancies kind of within my team. And, we've hired about half of those vacancies. And the entire process has been online. And there's a few things that I've seen come up time and time again that is quite disappointing. And I like to kind of just address them in today's podcast episode, just so that, I can be kind of upfront with kind of anyone who's kind of watching as to, from a kind of leadership perspective, kind of what is expected in these kind of remote UX interviews. And also anyone who's watching who, might be going through their first, second, third, whatever it might be, kind of remote interview, how you can actually prepare yourself correctly and become kind of successful in the process as well. So let's get started, right? So as I mentioned, I went through quite a rigorous process when it comes to kind of being hired in my current role as kind of director of digital customer experience, kind of looking after the kind of UX, UI, and research teams kind of at the company. And it's funny because sometimes my boss actually says, I was probably put through the most rigorous process that they've ever done. And a lot of that is to do because obviously the fact that it is online, right? And you've got to kind of make sure that you can really kind of get to know someone, right? You really understand their character, kind of who they are, what they can bring to the table. And also, can ascertain kind of whether or not they're kind of being kind of truthful, whether they carry themselves with integrity, whether their experience is valid. You've got to kind of quiz them kind of in the way that and kind of get that information kind of from them. So from my perspective, how do you, I guess, not just from my perspective, but I guess, how do you convey that message, right? How do you come across as kind of respectable? How do you come across as somebody who is kind of authentic, somebody who knows what they're talking about, somebody who carries that confidence that is required to, kind of execute the duties of the position that you're going for? And this is extremely difficult, when it comes to kind of UX design, because there's so much information that is available, right? Like to us, kind of as designers. There's so much information around kind of interview techniques and how to answer various different questions and, kind of making eye contact and kind of all of this kind of stuff, right? That's online about kind of interviewing. But what about a remote interview? Like, it's so tricky to kind of really kind of nail that. So I've noticed a few things, and I think there's a couple of things that you guys can do as UX designers to kind of really put your best foot forward. So I'm just going to go through them. So the first is projection. You need to make sure that you're projecting your voice, because you're not in the same room as your interviewers, right? Although sometimes it might feel that way. It might feel as though if you talk in your normal voice, that, they're going to kind of understand you and everything. Like, that's not necessarily the case. Like, sometimes, there's kind of issues with kind of sound quality, kind of microphones. And if you just kind of focus on your articulation and kind of projecting your voice and kind of I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you think about projecting or kind of projection, all of a sudden, like, your confidence boosts, like that energy just kind of lifts up into your chest and your voice just bellows, like it gets kind of deeper. It just sounds more confident. And that really comes across on video. It really does. Like, I can't explain it enough. Like, especially that when we're hiring for like senior positions within the team, like lead roles, like, it's nice to hear somebody just speak with conviction and just be looking directly at the camera at you, like not, kind of looking away, looking somewhere else, but looking at you and just speaking with bass, like just saying exactly what it is that they do, how they've done it, where they've done it, maintaining that kind of eye contact. Like, it just does wonders, right? So it's all about how you carry yourself kind of on camera. A second thing is, like, don't speak too quickly. Like, I understand it can be quite nerve-wracking to kind of meet your interviewers, and I've noticed, like, online as well, you might get many people on a call at the same time, and you don't really have the time to kind of like prepare kind of going into it. Sometimes it's very quick as, you open up Zoom and then bang, like everyone's kind of in the room, right? Where usually you would walk into a reception, you sit down and maybe have a glass of water and then, kind of go in. Like, you need to take control of your nerves and kind of slow down the way that you speak and make sure that you're taking moments to think before you speak as well. And, kind of that is vital. And don't be afraid of taking that moment to pause and say, hey, like, let me take a second to think about this and then come through with your answer. Like, you don't always have to be reactive in your response to the interviewers as well. So that brings me on to another point, which I think is a key. It's one of the strongest points I think that I can make when it comes to remote interviews is preparation. Okay, like, you're designers, we're all designers, and it is important that we come prepared with case studies and work that we can present to our interviewers, right? The amount of interviews that I've ran like throughout this year, and when I've asked a question, hey, so that piece of work that you were talking about, show it to me. Like, have you got any examples of the final result, the steps that you took, some of the research that you prepared, some of the analysis that you did? Like, show it to me. Walk me through it. And the amount of times like I've had people just say, oh, I haven't got it available, is astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing. Like, I remember even back in the day when I was first kind of starting out in design, like I would carry around like a huge kind of A1 size folder full of printed out designs. Like I had a printed portfolio for my digital design work, like my websites, my apps, all this kind of stuff was printed, physically printed out, right? And I would bring that to each and every interview. And I think we've become a bit complacent because there's so many online platforms such as Behance and Dribbble and your own online portfolios as well. A lot of people posting their work on Instagram. And we take this for granted and we think that's enough. But let's face it, like that's all very superficial, right? That doesn't tell me or any other interviewer that you know what you're doing, right? That you fully understand the process and the steps that are required to kind of achieve an excellent result or kind of outcome when it comes to product and design. So I can't stress enough that it's important that you bring your work with you. And, you know, in my opinion, like there's just no excuse. Like there's no excuse not to, because you're on your laptop, right? Like I find it astonishing that I've been on these interviews and we've requested to see some work or them to talk us through the project that they just discussed with us visually, and they can't show us anything. It's like you're working on you're interviewing on your laptop right now or on your iPad or whatever it might be. Come prepared. Like we work in digital, so all of our files are digital, right? Like point us to those files, like bring it up, share your screen, like walk us through it. But what's even more impressive and shows real preparation is when we ask you a question, answer the question with a live example. Answer the question with, hey, you know, this is what happened. Like this is the project. Actually, I can actually walk you through that step by step. This is the final result. And these are the steps that we take. And just put out files. Like it doesn't have to be a formalized presentation, but put out the wireframes, put out the research brief, put out the results, put out the analysis that you did. Like just be prepared. And I found, you know, like for me, going through a rigorous kind of process online, preparation was key, right? Because when you come prepared, it kind of indicates how you will be on the job, right? So like when I thought about it, when I was interviewing remotely as well, is if I don't come prepared, then what example of myself am I showing to my prospective employer? What example of myself am I displaying to my potential colleagues and team members? So it's imperative that you have that significant level of preparation ahead of the interview. Organize yourself. Think about the 3 most significant projects that you can point to that, you know, one project to outline your critical thinking and how you kind of approach problem solving. One to indicate how your solution ability or ability to solve problems drives impacts for customers and the business. And another one that showcases your entire process and the impact you make at each step of that process as well. Like if you come prepared, then nobody can fool you, right? And I don't see that enough. And it really, really disappoints me because I like to judge people based on myself as well. And, you know, what would I have done? Because that's a minimum kind of expectation, right? Like if I'm, especially for senior positions, if I'm employing somebody to become a leader within our organization, I need to see that you're forward thinking. I need to see that you're trying to understand where we're coming from and how we might be assessing you as well. So, hey guys, like that is my advice for kind of remote kind of work not remote work. That's my advice for remote interviews is effectively, you know, kind of speak with confidence, articulate yourself well and kind of clearly through kind of projection. Okay. And seriously, guys, come prepared when it comes to your portfolio and kind of have solid work examples ready. I can't stress that enough. Like, it's not enough to just have an online presence. Like, it really isn't. It doesn't give us, that deep kind of understanding of kind of whether or not you know your stuff. And let's face it, there's so much content online. Anybody can fake it. Anybody can fake it. It's the reason why I don't do tasks. I don't set tasks which you've got an entire week or an entire weekend to complete. Because anyone can fake this stuff. Like, there's so much information out there in terms of, best practices and set methodologies, and everybody knows and loves a double diamond. But how do I know you fully understand it? That's why it's important to have something prepared that you can actually kind of talk us through, because then that helps us to believe that you are the right person for the job, right? And it's same for tasks as well. I like to set live tasks. So anyone that applies for a job with me, expect a live task. Expect your critical thinking to be put to the test. Your creative ability and solution design to put to the test as well. And this is, again, something which is great for remote working as well, because you've got access to all of your tools available as well. So I digress. The most important takeaway I want you to take from this episode is be confident, be prepared. And if you do those things, you will be successful. Until next time, guys. Peace.